Today we're going to talk about spontaneous versus planned photography. Which is better? I don't know. We're going to go through some scenes that we find along our walk, share some photography that came out of those scenes, and then I want to take you through some post-processing where we identify and fix a really common blemish that shows up in photographs sometimes.
Spontaneity versus planning. Which is better in photography? Being spontaneous and getting out there and finding something you wouldn't have found otherwise, or putting some real thought and research behind a shot, getting out there and making it happen? I've got a lot of experience with both of those things, and honestly, I feel like being spontaneous has resulted in some of my best work. Not to say planning hasn't paid off also, because it has, but oftentimes planning can really lead to change of plans because there's just some things you just can't control. I was planning this moon shot behind a lighthouse, and I planned for it. I used the app. I found out exactly where the moon was going to be and where it was going to rise. I wanted the lighthouse to be on because it was on every other night. And then I got there, the lighthouse had turned off, and the moon didn't come up quite exactly where I thought it would. Ended up missing the shot. I got a similar shot the following night, but it wasn't the one I had in mind. But the one I got turned out great, but it was more spontaneous. Sometimes I'll just grab my camera and walk. Maybe I'll go into the forest or at the beach, into the desert, up a mountain, wherever it is, without a specific shot in mind, but just see what the area wants to show me. And it's those times where some of the best photography I've done has happened. And some of the photographers I know, there's some people who are just like really serious about the planning and only go out when they have their shot planned and ready to go. Others who just don't plan at all. They just grab their camera, go, and hope for the best. And I find myself somewhere in the middle of those two things. Today, for instance, I don't have any ideas. I'm more outside just for the exercise, for the walk. It happens to be beautiful, and I'm sure there's going to be some great photo opportunities, but I don't know what they're going to be. I don't have anything in mind. I'm just going to walk, and I like to say, see what shows itself to me. Those are some of my best shots, but I'm not going to stop planning. There's a shot of the moon coming up over the pier the other night was planned and almost missed. Just be open. Like when you're, that's my best advice is to be open to spontaneity and be ready for what the world might have to show you, because it just might surprise you with something you never ever would have expected. And that is some of the most beautiful work. It's another one of those really pretty mornings, kind of gray, but like the light's trying to peek through. And we've got some really cool puddles and reflection opportunities and some really nice big waves out there today. So let's walk. I want to see what we can find in the reflection today. And maybe there's some cool big wave shots, but let's just see what the color does in the sky and what kind of light that gives us to work with down here on planet Earth.
Let's talk about reflections. Sometimes when you're on a walk after the rain, you might stumble across a puddle. And in that puddle is just the world upside down. And that can make for a gorgeous photograph. So many people just walk right by. You get the right angle and you just find the beauty in the reflection. It says a lot about life too, doesn't it?
This is a classic oceanside shot after it rains. That right there, it's pretty cool. I don't think I can post it because it's been so many times. I've posted, so many others have done it, but I'm gonna shoot it and I'll post it in the video at least because it's a pretty cool shot and it makes my soul happy. So there.
Okay, so I want to show you what's something called the chromatic aberration. It happens very commonly in photographs, especially if you happen to be using a kit lens or a lens that may not be super expensive lens like most of us use. The kit lenses are great, and they do oftentimes create that chromatic aberration, and I'll show you what that is. But expensive lenses do it too. All lenses do it. Here, let me show you what I'm talking about here. So this image is the one we got with the reflection from the rainwater on the pier. I'm going to show you, this is the raw file. Obviously pretty different, but what we did is obviously crop in straighten it out, and then adjust the color and brightness of the image. So I'm not going to take you through the whole process of how we got from raw to finished, but this is before and this is after. But look at this. When we zoom in, say, on this palm tree, we can start to see some haloing effect. And it shows up typically in green or purplish pink lines. Those can be difficult to see. Sometimes they're very pronounced, sometimes they're a little hard to see. But in this instance, and I'll draw a little circle around it so you can see it, but we have this kind of haloing happening here, and then we can see it again on the palm leaf trees. This is caused by refracting in the lens. Light comes in, it's like any lens is a prism. And so sometimes when we're shooting at a faster f-stop, so if we're down in the f2.8, f3, f4 range, we're going to get more of this aberration than if we were shooting at a slower f-stop, in the f9, f11, f14 range. So that's often what causes it. For some reason, I was shooting with a really fast aperture today, even though it was bright. It wasn't necessarily the smartest thing in the world, and it wasn't completely intentional, but it's it's what I was doing. I probably should have been somewhere around f9. Instead, I was about f4, and so we have some of this aberration that has showed up. Not a big deal, especially in Lightroom, because there's just one button that is usually pretty good at fixing this, and that's in our global developing module here. And then we scroll all the way down to optics, and then in optics we have our remove chromatic aberration and our lens correction buttons. So if we were to click that button, just watch that little green area there, and it'll disappear or at least be softened. So in this case, it's as easy as clicking that button, and then we can enable lens corrections as well, which will just kind of just slightly change corners. Sometimes it'll just flatten out those corners just a little bit. So not a huge difference in this image, but we'll click that anyway. Sometimes if clicking that button doesn't fix your aberration, then you can go into this defringe section here and pick the color that you want to get rid of with the greens or the purples, and then adjust the amount and the hue. It's really effective. Sometimes if you do it too much, it'll just replace it with a gray, and so it just doesn't look right. So you just really need to fine tune it yourself and just see what's going to look right for your image. In this case, that chromatic aberration button looks like it did the trick. Sometimes we'll see it also around like a post like this. So if we were to take off the aberrations, yeah, we can kind of see it show up here on either side. So I should have shot at a slower aperture and slowed down the shutter speed or increased the ISO to prevent this from happening in the first place, but I didn't do that, and so now I need to fix it in post-processing, which we're lucky in this case is as easy as clicking a button. I hope you've enjoyed this video today. If so, leave a comment, a like. If not, leave a comment. Let me know why. Let me know how I can get better and improve. But I'm glad you were here, and I will see you again next time, and looking forward to the next adventure.